In the mid-1970s, a powerful sonic explosion echoed through the streets of New York City. This was not the sound of political unrest or economic upheaval, though the city had plenty of both. No, this was the sound of rebellion, of frustration, of a generation yearning to make itself heard. This was the sound of punk rock. The 70s were a tumultuous time in New York City. The economy was in a slump. The city teetered on the brink of bankruptcy. Crime was on the rise. The Vietnam War had left the country divided, and the Watergate scandal had eroded trust in the government. New York was a city on the edge, a city in need of an outlet, and it found one in punk rock. Punk was more than just music. It was an attitude, a reaction against the mainstream, against conformity, against anything and everything that was considered normal. It was raw, it was angry, it was loud. It was a scream of defiance from the disaffected youth of the city. And at the heart of it all was a dingy little club on the Bowery, a place that would become synonymous with the punk rock movement, CBGB. Originally intended to feature country, bluegrass and blues, hence the name CBGB, the club soon became a haven for punk bands, offering a platform for their gritty, unpolished sound. The club was a melting pot of music and culture, a place where musicians could experiment, push boundaries, and create something entirely new. It was here that bands like the Ramones, Blondie, and the Talking Heads cut their teeth, playing to crowds of disenchanted youths eager for something different, something real. And it was real. Punk wasn't about putting on a show, it wasn't about record sales or chart positions, it was about expression, it was about giving voice to the frustration, the disillusionment, the anger that was bubbling under the surface of society. Thus, amid the chaos and uncertainty, punk rock was born, a raw revolutionary sound that would change music forever. Among the vanguard of the punk rock movement were four lads from Queens, known collectively as the Ramones. The Ramones weren't just a band. They were a phenomenon that shook the music world with their unique blend of raw energy, relentless tempo, and an unmistakable aesthetic. They were the embodiment of punk rock. These four lads, donned in their signature leather jackets and ripped jeans, took to the stage with an intensity that was both thrilling and terrifying. Their music was a whirlwind of rapid-fire guitar riffs, pounding drums, and snarled lyrics, a stark contrast to the polished and produced sound popular at the time. It was raw, it was real, and it was undeniably punk. The Ramones' influence on the punk rock scene was colossal. They were the catalysts, the instigators, the pioneers. Their debut album, simply titled Ramones, released in 1976, became a blueprint for countless bands. Tracks like Blitzkrieg Bop and I Wanna Be Sedated resonated with a generation of disillusioned youth, providing a soundtrack for rebellion. The band's no-nonsense approach to music was mirrored in their lyrics. They sang about the grittier side of life, about alienation, about frustration. Their words were a rallying cry for those who felt overlooked and unheard. The Ramones didn't just play music, they gave a voice to the voiceless. In their 2 decades of existence, the Ramones redefined the landscape of rock music. They carved out a niche that was entirely their own, one that was unapologetically loud, defiant, and rebellious. They didn't just contribute to the punk rock genre, they were the genre, and yet despite their profound influence, the Ramones remained humble. They never lost sight of their roots, of their shared love for music and their desire to push boundaries. They were 4 lads from Queens who dared to be different, who dared to challenge the status quo, and in doing so became legends. The Ramones, with their stripped-down sound and rebellious lyrics, defined what it meant to be punk. They were, and will always be, the quintessential punk rock band. They were the Ramones. As punk rock raged on, a new wave of musicians began to emerge, and at their forefront was Blondie. A band that truly encapsulates the spirit of the era, Blondie, fronted by the iconic Debbie Harry, played an integral role in the evolution of punk into new wave. Born out of the gritty, grimy streets of 1970s New York City, Blondie was a regular act at the legendary CBGB, the birthplace of punk. Their music was a refreshing blend of punk's raw power with the catchy hooks of pop. This unique fusion was a significant departure from the nihilistic rage that characterized much of punk rock, signaling the dawn of the new wave era. The band's breakthrough came in 1978 with the release of their 3rd album, Parallel Lines. The album spawned several hits, including the chart-topping Heart of Glass, a disco-infused punk anthem that became a global sensation. This was followed by a string of successful albums and hits, effectively solidifying their place as new wave pioneers. But Blondie was more than just their music. Debbie Harry, with her platinum blonde hair and edgy fashion sense, became an emblem of the era. She was unapologetically herself, challenging the male-dominated music industry with her fierce persona and powerful vocals. She was a punk rock goddess, a new wave queen, and a feminist icon, all rolled into one. Her influence extended beyond the music industry. She became a fashion icon, inspiring countless women to embrace their individuality and break free from societal norms. Debbie Harry was not just a singer, she was a symbol of empowerment for women everywhere. Blondie's impact on the music scene cannot be overstated. They were instrumental in the transition from punk to new wave, bridging the gap between the two genres with their eclectic sound. Their music was a reflection of the times, a snapshot of a pivotal moment in music history. Blondie not only rode the punk wave but also helped shape its evolution, blending punk's raw energy with pop sensibilities. They were, in every sense, the soundtrack to a generation, and their legacy continues to reverberate through the corridors of music history. In the realm of punk, where rebellion was the rule, the New York Dolls dared to defy. This band, formed in the early 70s, was a pivotal force in the New York City punk rock scene. They were notorious, they were audacious, and they were, in essence, the embodiment of glam punk. The New York Dolls were not just a punk band, they were a spectacle. Dressed in high heels, glitter and lipstick, they were a shocking sight for the conservative crowds of the 70s. Their style was a bold statement, a rebellion against the norms, and a reflection of the band's ethos. The Dolls didn't just play music, they performed it, and their theatrical style became a hallmark of their identity. But it wasn't just their appearance that set the Dolls apart. Their music, a raucous blend of punk and glam rock, was as provocative as their style. With raw, powerful riffs and lyrics that pushed the boundaries, they were a force to be reckoned with. The Dolls' sound was loud, it was brash, and it was distinctly their own. The New York Dolls' influence on the punk scene was profound. Their fusion of punk and glam rock was innovative, and it paved the way for future bands. They showed that punk could be more than just a musical genre. It could be an attitude, a statement, and a way of life. The Dolls' impact on punk rock was not limited to their music. Their rebellious spirit, their refusal to conform, and their audacious style inspired countless artists. They were pioneers, breaking barriers and pushing the boundaries of what was considered acceptable in music and fashion. The New York Dolls were not just a band, they were a phenomenon. They challenged conventions, they defied expectations, and they left an indelible mark on the punk rock scene. Their legacy is one of boldness, of creativity, and of unapologetic individuality. The New York Dolls, with their flamboyant style and audacious sound, added a new dimension to punk rock. As the punk rock scene evolved, so did its sound, leading to the emergence of post-punk bands like Talking Heads. In the late 70s, as punk began to simmer down, a new wave of bands emerged, pushing the boundaries of this rebellious genre. Among them was Talking Heads, a band that took punk's raw energy and melded it with elements of funk, art rock, and world music. This unique sound set them apart, making them a defining act of the post-punk era. Formed in the heart of New York City, Talking Heads were regulars at the iconic CBGB Club, where they honed their style and sound. They were not just another punk band, they were pioneers pushing the genre into uncharted territories. With their intellectual lyrics and avant-garde musical approach, they stood out in a scene dominated by three-chord anthems. Their most popular songs, such as Psycho Killer, Once in a Lifetime, and Burning Down the House, were not only catchy but also thought-provoking, exploring themes of existential dread, self-reflection, and societal commentary. These songs resonated with listeners, offering a deeper, more introspective take on punk. Talking Heads didn't just contribute to the post-punk scene, they helped shape it. Their influence can be heard in countless bands that followed, from the indie rockers of the 90s to the alternative acts of today. They proved that punk could be more than just loud and fast. It could be artistic, innovative, and profound. The band's frontman, David Byrne, with his distinctive delivery and eccentric stage presence, became an emblematic figure in the post-punk movement. His approach to music, coupled with the band's groundbreaking use of multimedia in their performances, further cemented their place in the annals of punk history. Talking Heads, with their fusion of punk, funk and art rock, epitomized the diverse sonic landscape of post-punk. Their impact on the genre is undeniable, and their legacy continues to inspire musicians across the globe.